I'm Charles,
This is Emmanuel.
and you are listening to
Blight Makes Right.
the original Legion of Everblight podcast. How you doing, buddy?
We're back, man. I'm doing great.
I'm so psyched to record. Like, I had such a blast last weekend. I've like the whole week I've been like wanting to record like every day, but it's Saturday. Excited, got all sorts of Legion shenanigans to talk about. Had a great time. Do you have any news or anything you want to do before we get into the PDX Open?
No, man. Let's just roll right into it. We can always talk about stuff at the end of the podcast and kind of recap.
Sure. So our last episode was the Legion list dojo, right? Like we haven't had one since then.
Nope, that was the last one.
So I talked about my Veil list in that episode, if I recall.
Yes, you did.
And so I got to actually bring it to an event. So I actually had this probably kind of stupid idea that I was just like, all right, I have all these lists that I want to potentially practice going into the PDX Open. And I just kind of let the Legion community vote on which two casters I was going to play.
That was so awesome.
You know, we talked about it a bit, and even though Callus is still my main list, I wanted to potentially just not play him at this event because it's not an actual War Machine Weekend qualifier. It was a points it was like a wild card points event. So I mean, it's still an event, and it was attracting people from all over, like the whole like West Coast. There's Californians there. There was a bunch of WTC players. Like it was a strong event, but it was not a War Machine Weekend spot. So I knew I didn't want to be as experimental with the Seattle Open that's coming up in a couple of weeks. And so I thought
you guys had a really good competitive spread there, man.
Yeah, it was definitely a strong event as far as players go.
I mean, you had like line of sight players. You had the team captain from the second WTC team, Brandon. Like, I mean, it was a Shark Tank. Like, I think you're underplaying the fact that it was a Shark Tank. Like PDX
there were, I believe, 3 people from one of the American WTC teams. Like, it was a strong meta, particularly. And it was a very well run event. But so I decided, okay, I'm not going to play Callus because I was a little worried that it would just be like, all right, I'll see like Mirage or something, and then I'm just going to want to like, oh, this is a great scenario for Callus, so I should just play him, and then I'll start winning, and then be like, well, now that I'm winning, I should play Callus, and I really wanted to practice another list. So I was thinking about Callus 2. I liked Donnie's list, so that was in my lineup. I'd made a Thagrosh 2 list that I like, a Veil 1 list that I like, and then I also had an Animag list that I wanted to try. And what was the other caster that was on my... There was a 5th one. Absolonia?
Thagrosh. Was it both Thagrosh?
Oh, Thagrosh 1. Thagrosh 1 was the other one. So those are all the casters that I kind of was like, I've got lists for these. I wouldn't mind trying them and experimenting with them. Community voted. Like Thagrosh 2 and Veil 1 were like neck and neck right at the top. Like way... lists. Spoiler alert, I did not end up playing the Thagrosh 2 list at all. I played the Veil 1 list the entire time. The list
That's your MO. That's basically what you do, is you're like one list champion.
Yeah, I'm just like, I'm enjoying this list and it's going. And there was a round, I think, where I considered Thags, but we'll get to that. Anyway, the Veil 1 list is Amok.
Where have I heard that before? There's a round where I considered not, playing the one thing, and then I decided,
So anyway, it's Amok, Golab, a Seraph, and then it's got a Feralgeist, and then it's double chosen, Warmongers with Gorag, a full unit of Birdies, and double Hellmouth.
Lots of beef.
Yeah, just all the stuff. Tons of worker models. Very, very, very ominous. And so I'm already like, my mindset going into this is that I just want to practice. I'm kind of expecting that I'll probably lose round 1 or 2 and then, get more practice in, right? And then pairings come up, and I see that I'm playing against a friend of mine that, used to play with back in the day. So Jason and I are going to get a game again. We haven't played in a long time. And it's going to be Veil 1 versus Madrak 2 in Mirage. And so I was very much like, yeah, if I had gotten this, I almost certainly would have dropped Callus. Like, you know, I'm like looking at both of his lists, and I forget what his other list was. It was Madrak 2, and I don't remember what the other one was. But I definitely felt like, not knowing what I was playing against exactly, I was pretty confident that I would have dropped Callus. So I'm like, I'm already happy that I'm not playing Callus. So I just get some good matchup experience. But this game was super weird because I won the role. I think I won the role to go first, and I chose to let him go first. And then bottom of one, I'm looking, and he's only got like one dude in front of Madrak, and I can get a tentacle to that dude and a tentacle to Madrak. And so I call over a judge, make sure that he had one beast that might potentially block the pull to the Hellmouth. And so just like, it was close enough that I was like, here, just let me know, do I need to try to drag this guy too, to make sure that he gets dragged? I'm like, I don't really lose a whole lot except time for going for this. So let's just see how it goes, right? And so I like walk forward with Insight, and I put Chiller onto the Hellmouth. And so I'll catch, if I pull Madrak in, then I catch him in Insight, and he'll have Chiller on him, and I'll murder him with Golem. That's the idea, right? Problem is, so after we pull we kill the random Creel warrior or whatever who's in front of Madrak, and thankfully the judge kind of caught on to what was going on. So he came by, and after the tentacle hit, he's like, all right, you guys, pause the clock. There's an ability that triggers here that's not optional. So he's like, read, Grim Salvation. It's not optional. He has to shunt this attack off to another model. He doesn't have a choice. And so in the way that it's worded, like the whole drag effect and everything will hit that other model. So we're like, okay. But this kind of changed the whole dynamic of the game, because Jason felt like he had already messed up and had lost the game. And so I think he'd, to a certain extent, kind of mentally checked out, where it was like, I messed up, I'm going to lose this game now. And so when we're like, well, now we're going to have a game. And I didn't really lose much. I was just kind of low on time. So at that point, move a bunch of shit forward. We're playing in Mirage. And what ends up happening is I pretty aggressively go up on scenario. That was the plan. This stuff doesn't go up. He charges in Fen Blades and stuff, but he's still like, he's getting chewed up by tentacles and stuff. And I've just got so many models, and I got Golab moving around, handing out, anti-tough bubbles. And then he fails to contest my circle zone. And so I go up and I win like 6-1 on scenario pretty quickly. But it was still a good lesson learned, first round, kind of like, nerves and stuff out of the way. And so I've learned something new, and Veil ones want to know.
You brought up a really interesting point right at the beginning there, and I didn't want to interrupt you because you were on a roll. But when you were like, okay, well, there was one thing in front of my opponent's thing that I wanted to drag, so do I have to just drag that too? And that is a question I've been faced with a lot of times, and I feel like opponents kind of underestimate the ability to unpack those situations. Like, you can't just put one model in front of your model and be like, problem solved, because it's not going to do it. Like, that's not enough. You have to strategically think about, like, all right, can I put 2 or 3 models? Can I eclipse different bases so that this becomes really hard to solve? Because if you just put 2 models there, guess what? I'm going to drag them both.
Yeah, and that was the thing. There was another dude who could have potentially blocked that positioning, and he had the troll that gives him access to Earth's Blessing, so he could have used that. Not that it ended up mattering, right? Because I didn't actually pull the light. And maybe it would have been better if I did pull the light, because then I would have been able to take a light war beast bottom of 1. So maybe that had been better. But in the end, really all I did was kill like 1 Creel warrior. And no, I got like 2 Creel warriors because I hit Madrak for the pull. I ended up needing like a 6 or something. So it was going to hit. But yeah, I got was checking out, like pulling the dudes out of the way. But I think I told him how far he needed to stay away from the Hellmouth, but he was kind of focused on thinking about the charge range. And for some reason, he had it in his mind it was 1-inch reach. And so when he was thinking about the movement, he was just too close.
That can definitely happen, and that's an experience thing. It's also like you have two Hellmouths, so there's a lot of vectors to consider. I get a lot of similar experiences with Animag because you want to drag things in so you can get all the juicy buffs in your bubble. I want to be able to drag them into Carnage and all of that. So being able to drag them into Insight, I'm sure, can really get you up. Speaking of which, how does Game 2 go?
Game 2. So let's see. Game 2, I get a Crix player. And again, the moral of this event has been that people are not as used to playing against Legion as they once were. There was a lot of like, I don't see a lot of Legion. And like, hey, do you have any questions about Vale? Because nobody plays her, right?
Yeah.
So round 2, I get a Crix player, and he's like, it's gonna be my first game against Scar 3. This was one of the rounds that I was considering doing Fags, but I forget the Trollkin dudes, the with like the flaming Molotov cocktail chain whip things. I forget what they're called.
Marauders.
Yeah, the Marauders. He had 2 units of those, and those guys get kind of hard to hit for troops, like because they get up to defense 14. So I was very worried that if I put Fags on the table, he doesn't do enough to like fix the mat of the troops. And so I was concerned that I would choke on them too much. So that's why I leaned on Vale. And to answer the listener question, I tell my opponents that it's somewhere between 11.5 and 11.6 inches. And so if you're 11.6 or more, you are definitely safe from the Hellmouth. If you are 11.5, you are definitely in. And so a lot of time people will get to that precision, but a lot of time they'll just go with the 12 inches in most cases. This was one of the first times I'd seen, like, said the numbers out loud and then they ran into it anyway. That wasn't Immortals, because Immortals can't be pulled. So what happened in this one, they were really trying to keep this event on schedule. So this was one after we got over to our table, we had rolled. He was going first. I can't remember whether I won the roll, but either way, he ended up going first. I'm pretty happy going second into this matchup. But at the point where he wasn't ready to start deploying, the judge came over and was like, you need to start the clock. And I was like, okay, well, it's round 2. I'm not going to argue with the judge too much. So I'm like, hey, dude, I gotta start the clock. The judge has said so. So he lost a couple of minutes, and I think he kind of hastily deployed his stuff. And I don't think it was quite the perfect deployment for him. So he was a little rushed. And but basically what happened was he comes forward and he doesn't have Jessica or whatever the crazy UA is not on the Marauders. It's on the other trolls.
The blighted whatever.
Yeah, the blighted one. So
the blighty ones.
She's on the blighted unit that's behind the Marauders. So I'm like, okay, so I can kill some of these guys and I don't trigger vengeance. Great. So I use some tentacles with, I'll just like, Vale moves up, she like Oculuses, shoots a tentacle or whatever, and then like can like arc icy grip onto them, not icy grip, frost field. And so that they get a little bit more accurate on their charges. So I love doing that in early games. He kind of comes forward and he's trying to like take some shots at Hellmouse, but his Kraken doesn't do great. And I knew that I was getting Scar because his other list was Denny 2. And you're not going to play Denny 2 into double Primal Terrorist lists. That's just not going to happen. So, but he comes forward. He takes some shots. I kill a few things, go over to him. He kind of comes forward to start like going into the zone. And he does take some shots with Scar, kind of unloading into, I believe, some Chosen and Hellmouth and just trying to like get some work done. And then he passes turn over to me and I'm like, all right, we're going to check something. Are you within 16 inches of Go Lab? He was like 15 inches. I was like, all right, well, I upkept leash on Go Lab. So I've got to kill this dude who's blocking my landing zone. So basically I had to kill one dude and hopefully get some damage onto Scar before Go Lab goes in. Because I was doing the math and I was like, Go Lab with Insight can kill Scar if she's got at least one damage point on her average dice, I overkill her by like 4 points. She's got like 3 transfers, something like that. So I'm like, all right. So, but the problem is when I vengeanced with my warmongers, I ended up blocking the spot for Vale to move forward into. And so that was one of my mistakes. But so that base was like, okay, I have to get some things out of the way. So the birds have to charge and the warmongers have to charge before I can walk up and cast Insight. Plus side is I get one, mini feat. I get one warmonger onto her, and he clocks her really good. Like he rolls pretty baller dice. Like I'm pretty sure it was like 664 or something. So suddenly it was like black alert in Star Trek Discovery. It's like mission is a go. Like because now she's damaged and a transfer is gone. So now suddenly this went from like, because if he rolls a 9 at like dice -5 and then he spends the focus, so then there's no damage, so I blow a focus but she doesn't have any damage on her, that can hurt Golab, because then if I spike low on the first damage roll and he blows a focus and I still don't get finisher, like the math can go bad, if I don't get at least a damage point on her, because he, even though I believe he actually feated, but he healed her back up to full, and so she had no damage on her. But magic, the magic happens. I got to kill like one dude, and then I just got to keep Golab out of the -2 attack bubble, which was no problem. And so Golab goes over and he eats her. Like Golab ends up being an effective like mat 11. Or I don't even think I kept Chiller up because I had Gorag over there, and so it was just like. But yeah, Golab ends up eating Scar, bottom of 2, like just, and he was like. He said after the game that, with the way that he ended up unpacking, normally he would have had more stuff in front of her. But I dropped a bunch of tentacles in front of his dudes so that he ended up he could charge through his dudes, but he got kind of stuck on the tentacles, and he didn't get to go up quite as far as he wanted to. So yeah, that was round 2. I was like, well, if this is going to be a long day, let's see how this goes. That could give me a beer break. I think we had lunch afterwards, so I had kind of some chill time, just kind of collect. I'm like, all right, Vale won 2-0. Let's do this.
Well, I think you brought up a lot of interesting points in that game. The first was at the beginning of your turn, you check the assassination distance, and you're like, all right, so the distance is good. I've mapped that out. And then you go into all right, with Insight and Frost Field and damage on her. Okay, I need 3 layers at least. Now a 4th layer to remove a model. So there's a lot of time being spent into the thought of this. And then if it doesn't provide fruitful, you've spent a lot of time thinking of running it through. But it's all information that could become useful later. You brought up the fact that the Scar healed herself back to full after feeding, which was super clutch because he could have just given you the easy out on that assassination.
Yeah, if he had started with 1 damage point on Scar, that gets really bad really quick, because then there's a lot of moving parts that don't matter. And I think I had a birdie charge on her, so if she had been damaged, then the birdie has finisher too. But I believe my birdie charge didn't end up doing any damage to her, because it was dice -11, and it was just 3 dice. So, but it was just again, I needed a point, right?
And there are a lot of deceptive ways to sneak points on the casters, like being able to unbind one of their spells against cricks can suddenly make finisher just turn on, which will be really nice. I like that you had mentioned basically going through and the fact that if the dice go bad, say he transfers away and you get no damage, so you don't trigger finisher, and then Golab goes in and he transfers away and you don't trigger finisher. Now you're in a serious detriment because you've dedicated a lot of time and a lot of resources to something that's now probably not likely if Golab doesn't get it done. And even with all the layers of Insight and Frost Field and everything else, things can still go really bad for you. So having that go moment where you're like, all right, this is the threshold. If I make it past the threshold and I get the damage on her, the mission's a go. But until that point, I don't have to commit any resources that are going to get me in a place where I'm in a bad spot if this doesn't go well.
Yeah, I mean, Vale was going to be pretty far forward, um, but I elected to not spend her last. I think I had 3 on her, because I needed a pull leash. I did not keep Frostfield up because I didn't need it, but I did have to upkeep leash, and so I left the 3 Fury on Vale because I felt like even though she was gonna be pretty far forward, I have a lot of dudes in that list, and most of them were alive. So and I was popping feet. So if I don't get it, like there's still going to be like a whole army in front of Vale, and she's going to have 3 transfers, right?
Yeah.
So I thought I could live through it, and if she's on like a couple of boxes, like she can't really hide. Like where's she going?
Yeah.
Like, she's a battle engine. So I thought, like, even though I would take really, really heavy losses that turn, I thought it would be. I didn't want to go all in. I didn't think that Hoarfrost like was going to matter enough for me to not like. I was like, I would feel a lot better about it just having that 3, so that I can live through it and keep it going, because it just changes the whole dynamic of the game.
It's so cinematic too. Like she's riding out there on her soul forged boat, and suddenly Golab just comes flying out of the sky and picks her off of it, and it's just like,
yeah, nom 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 nom.
All right, so more noms for Legion. Round 3. What was next?
Oh, let's see. What was round 3? I remember what round 4 and 5 were. It's now been a week. It's actually been basically an exact week. Crap. Say something while I think about this. Oh, no, I remember what it is. This was the round I got Scorn. So I play against Matthew, who, as soon as we go down to like start playing, he's like, I just want to tell you, big fan of Remove from Play. So really looking forward to this game. So yeah, it was like, he's like, just by the way, I love the podcast. Really looking forward to playing against you.
Nice.
I was looking at his list. I really wasn't sure exactly what he was going to drop, but he ends up dropping Mordekar Immortals into me. And again, this was a situation where I felt like having this was a round that I thought I could drop Thags, but I was like, we're now far enough in, like we're 2-0, like Vale's feeling real good. Let's just keep going with it.
I don't know why you lie to yourself and bring a second list. Like you just save the brain power and just know you're going to one list it every time.
Well, that's part of why this event is this event, right? Because this is me practicing my off list. And so this could be a whole lot more interesting if I bring Vale 1 and Callus 1 going forward, because now I'm suddenly feeling very good with both of them.
This is true.
But this game got so it was great at first because like he's starting to charge stuff in. I'm like doing the math. I'm like, okay, you need a 6 to hit this guy. It's dice, and he's just like, at one point he's like, dude, you were like the most helpful opponent that I've ever had, because I'm always just like trying to help him go quickly on his turns. I'm like, this is what you need to hit. This is your dice minus blank, and just like trying to keep things flowing smoothly. But so we're on Mordekar's feet turn, and I've got all the map buffs, and I've played against Mordekar before, so I know about Poltergeist. And so I'm all set up. I got like Chiller on my Warmongers, and I send in my full unit into Immortals. He's only got like 3 or 4 in one zone and like 5 in the other. And so my plan is like, it's time to clear zones, right? Like it's going to clear zones. And my whole unit of Warmongers goes in and does nothing.
Oh, no.
Basically, it was like 2 or 3 misses, needing like 4s, and the others puck checks. Yeah, it was charge. I need like, I mean, they're
and Gorag is there.
Well, this is Warmongers.
Oh, Warmongers. Okay.
Yeah, so the charges were not into stuff that were close enough for like Golab to be like giving negative tough, but
it's no, Gorag. Like, so Gorag's there for the -2,
right? Yeah,
and they have Frostfield on him.
Yep. No, like I'm needing like 4s, and I missed. I forget whether it was miss 2 or 3 or tough 2 or 3, but I'm pretty sure it was miss 3.
And they get powerful charge. So you got +6 on these charges.
Yes, I'm very, very high. And and he's
Ow!
just kind of like, dude, I'm sorry, because it was like they were no knockdown, so literally I did nothing, and like even one warmonger hits and kills and has a chance to kill another one, and so I was like, I knew that there was going to be at least a tough, and there was probably going to be a miss. I just all of a sudden I'm like, shit, like that was a lot of what I wanted to commit this turn that then just did nothing. So now all of a sudden we're in a little bit of a panic because I'm like, I may not clear either zone now. Like I have done no work. And
I know
that was a lot of my expected clearing power into mortals was what the warmongers were going to do. So I get attacks in where I can, but there's a ominous thing that I do, which is when dice don't go wrong, I don't tilt like in a negative way. I just kind of like go into the zone and like, all right, how can I dig myself out of this now? And sometimes I can spend a little bit too long in that tank. So I'm getting low on, I wasted too much time this turn was probably the biggest mistake. Because I got to remember, like I can still play through bad turns. So I did work, but I ended up scoring nothing because I just can't get through. I think I end up leaving both zones with like one or two guys in them. I just can't get all of them. But then the stuff happens where I basically start choking him on birds and tentacles because I feet, and so I try to back up as much as I can of like the good stuff.
Choking him on what?
Birds and tentacles.
Birds and tentacles. Okay, yeah. I had to make sure I heard you right. That sounded naughty.
So then I'm just like, after this turn, I'm like, he does decent work with Vengeance. And so after that turn, I kind of switch into this mode of like, I'm going to ignore immortals as much as I can. And so, I think he put a battle engine in to like murder a bunch of guys, but basically now it starts to become operation. Oh, I did at least kill a razor worm and Abadan or whatever on that feat turn.
But did you really kill Abadan?
Yes, because he forgot to bring him back for the whole rest of the game.
Well, then you really killed Abadan. Hey, congratulations.
But so I kind of switch gears. I'm like, I'm going to stop bothering with immortals so much, and I'm just going to try to jam them up and focus on the center scenario. And so then I'm just like, then it's just like operation work on battle engines. And I'm actually like kind of eyeing Mordekar, being like, I want to go kill him, but I'm trying to be very careful because he's got his character beast with arcane suppression, and he's casting the like your spells cost more. So I'm trying to be very careful to not get screwed and not be able to have Golab sprint away. So there's times where I'm like using sprint before I charge in, just so I know that I only have to spend one. And this becomes this drag out dirty attrition game where I'm constantly just like dropping tentacles. I switch to this mode of like protect the Hellmouths at all costs. Like he does not get charges on the Hellmouths because I want to hold these two zones. And so my left zone is kind of falling apart more so. Like the Chosen are going down, went down faster because he committed the battle engine and murdered like 2 or 3 of them with the battle engine. So I move Amok over to that side because there's a wall. And so Amok's like, I'm dedicating Amok to like helping hold this zone and preventing the incorporeal charges into the Hellmouth. Basically, operation stall both zones and then focus on the middle. And he sends in his character beast, but then I utilize Dark Sentinel, just take like 1 free strike. He's able to kill the objective, but then I take his character beast. And then seeing things start swinging. And basically what happens is it goes down to turn 7. And I screwed up on turn 6 and did not use Slipstream because I'm low on time. And I needed to Slipstream Golab forward so he could have killed the objective on that turn. And I go up 2 points. Or I kill another one of his beasts, something to that effect. But basically, so now I'm still down 1-0 because he's killed my objective, but we've had no other point scoring, and it's bottom of 7. And I've got like 60 seconds or something left. So it's just like move up, kill his objective. I have like 20 seconds left, and I don't really think I can roll to kill the Kreia. So I'm like, let's just count army points. We count, and he's at 40. He gives me 42 because I killed his character beast. I killed a battle engine. I killed the Abadan, and I killed a void spirit that he created. Actually, from I believe from killing the objective, possibly. I forget what it was, but one way or another, he got a Void Spirit. And then we look down. I'm like, all right, well, you killed this full unit of Chosen. All right, they're dead. You got all of the Warmongers. So that's 39. I'm like, you got this. And I look, I'm like, wait a minute. You did not kill anything else. Amek's alive. Feralgeist is still alive. And there's one Rotwing. And so we counted at the time, we're like 42 to 39. But I don't think we actually tallied in the Razor Worm. So I think I actually had a bit more points in that, but he very much regretted, like, he should have focused and made the attacks and gone for the 7s on that Rotwing, but he also didn't have a ton of time. But it was his last turn, so he definitely could have gone longer. But yeah, it just got to the point where he was choking, like trying to kill Chosen, and like he's just dice -4, and he's like, I hit you, and then I hit you for 3, and you heal back 2, and it was just a lot of that over and over and over again because I was just not giving him charges. But yeah, that was one of the best games that I've played. It was super tight, down to the wire, winning on army points with like 25 seconds left on my clock.
Nice, man. Well, nothing like a close game to really push you to your max. And it's great hindsight to look back and say, like, on turn 6, I should have slipstream Golab so he's 2 inches forward the following turn. Like, those are moves that you only
back up.
see.
So I just needed to slipstream that turn. The problem was that there was a forest in the way, so I couldn't charge through it to his beast and objective. But if I had slipstreamed forward, which was my plan, and then Golab just walked forward and kills the stuff, but he's not in charge range. So it was for that turn. I walked up Vale, did her thing, and I'm like, I was fucking supposed to slipstream. Because the Seraph frenzied that turn into my objective, I think.
Ouch. It's really clutch to play into the end game, because those things that you see on turn 6 and turn 7 being key, like, did I kill that one Rotwing? Did I clear up to get my army points? Did I kill his objective? Did I make sure I set myself up in the final turn? I know, like, when I get to turn 6, I start thinking about turn 7 real hard. Like, when I get to turn 5, I start thinking about turn 7 real hard, because I'm like, okay, like, what's not finished off? What's out of position? Because if I only have 2 more turns to move things around, it's like playing chess on a chess clock where you know you're only going to get a few more moves left before time runs out.
Yeah.
Like, what is it I need to do to make sure that I finish out what I need to do in this game? Because I've had enough games go to the end and go to army points to know that there are enough games that come down to a handful of points, and it could have been like, oh, if I had just killed that one extra Ravager, I'd have got that whole extra unit, but I just ignored him because I thought he was irrelevant most of the game.
Yeah, and if I'd done the slipstream, I think I actually would have gone up 2-1, and so it wouldn't have even gone to army points. Like, he would have had to clear a zone or something to make it go army points. Because I think at that time he had, like, maybe the Kreia and the objective, and I think I may have been able to kill both if Golab had been slipstreamed forward, because he murders stuff with insight.
Yeah, he does.
But then obviously at that point, Matt has very accurately recognized the operation is to score points and tie up the game. And so at that point, he puts in the Supreme Guardian into the zone. And sure, maybe I can kill the Supreme Guardian, but I don't think I can kill the objective and the Supreme Guardian and the Kreia. So now I'm not scoring that zone. So the best I could do was tie it up.
Yeah.
So anyway, so now I'm 3-0 with 3 very different games. Like, one's a scenario victory, one is an assassination victory, and one is this drag out dirty, like, jam fest that ends on army points. Talk about 3 completely different ways to do games.
So your 4th round, which category does it fall into?
4th round, I get Trolls again against a really nice Portland local that we never actually played, but I'd seen his name off and on for years because he'd been playing longer than I have. And I love the Portland War Machine community. So we finally were getting a game. And so I look down and it's going to be, he's got Madrak 1 and Kolgrima. And we're talking about the matchup. And he's like, what do you have that's immune to cold? And I'm like, the only thing that's immune to cold is Vale. And, so we're talking about how, like, Kolgrimas can be a little rough for Legion, but, leaves the assassinations off the table against Vale. And I'm like, Animag's kind of like that against Legion, and I thought about bringing him today, but I let the community vote, so no Animag.
Yeah, Animag's real good in the trolls.
Yeah, my plan had been that my original plan where I was leaning was to go Animag and Veil 1. But so things come down. I'm kind of expecting Colgrima anyway, but it ends up being Madrak 1 versus Veil. I'm like, okay, cool. Guess I got to play against the other Madrak. So I'm like double checking his card and being like, okay, now I remember Scroll. All right, he's got a totally different feat though. But again, this was a situation I was kind of thinking about Fags, but again, it's another defense buff caster. And this is what I've been talking about lately. I just feel like I'm running into I'm just a +2 defense buff like everywhere, putting stuff to 14s and 15s. So this one was championship belt, if I recall. So this one was going to be like super middle of the board, but there's a house in the middle of the board, and I'm like, oh my god, it's happy time for Veil and GoLab. So this game ends up being, I believe this was the one game where I chose to go first because I wanted to take table space. It was 2 very melee armies. He had some AD guys that throw bombs, but I thought it was still worthwhile for me to take table. So the one interesting thing is with me choosing to go first and this being this center of a scenario, I actually could not get my Hellmouths into the rectangular zones. Basically, it was mathematically impossible for me to put them in there. And so that was one sad thing. And I was like, I'm used to being able to put these like in every zone everywhere. I guess I can't always have what I want all the time. But this is like a dirty drag out attrition fest because I'm all the way up in the zones. And so he's trying to come in, but then I'm taking stuff away from him and charging out, but he's got tough everywhere. I'm doing everything I can with GoLab. Like GoLab's right in the middle of the board. So it was pretty much a constant like, all right, well, these guys don't get tough. And then GoLab goes over here and he's trying to like fill up the area on the other side of this house so that GoLab doesn't have a landing zone. So it's not like super easy, but I just keep killing stuff and then jamming with birds and tentacles. And then eventually what happens is he, his feet also made it very difficult to like get enough damage in on the champ. So now there's these champions spread out that I'm having a harder time dealing with. But I did some damage to them. So now I randomly get finisher in weird places. But what happens is like after his feet turn, he goes to like charge in a champion at I believe like a chosen, and GoLab Dark Sentinels over kills the champion, and there's really nothing that can threaten GoLab from that position based on what's activated. So now GoLab's in a much more dangerous position, and I end up going for an assassination because we're the game is running long, and I don't have a ton of time, but I'm looking down, I'm like, I may only have like 8 minutes or something, but I don't have that much to kill, and GoLab's already over in this position that's relatively close, so things I need to get out of the way are like in the no tough bubble, and so it's operation like slipstream. It was like kill some stuff around GoLab, slipstream him like a little further forward to catch other things in the bubble, and then kill other things that are in the way, ignoring tough. But then it's like insight, chiller on GoLab, Gorag can see Madrak. So I'm literally going into like the buffed Madrak bubble, and I'm at double ones to miss. I'm effectively like a Mat 13 GoLab. And then the Creel Stone is right next to Madrak. So literally GoLab walks over, doesn't even have to charge, just walks up to Madrak and is like, well, first we're going to eat that. And I've got no healing, so you can't self-sacrifice anything. Creel Stone's gone. So now the armor buff goes away. And the Seraph had walked over and like shot Madrak to get some damage on him. But he transfers that. So I don't have finisher immediately. But I'm going to kill with 1 attack. So I'm going to have 6 more attacks on Madrak, and he's down to no transfers. He has 1 transfer. He transfers the high damage Seraph shot. He's also got the scroll or the grim thing or whatever. So he's going to shunt 1 attack, but he's got no transfers. He's going to have no Creel Stone, and I will have 5 other attacks. So pretty much what happens you'd expect. He eats Madrak.
Delicious.
So again, a very, grind out to eventually an assassination victory.
Do you know if he was playing the tier that has like takedown on a stick for all the troops?
No, he was playing the cold one. So actually Chiller didn't matter like for most of the game. But when we were going in for the assassination, I'm like, can you double check and see if Madrak gets the cold immunity or if it's just his troops? And he double checks and he goes, Madrak does not have cold immunity. I'm like, okay, we're going for it because Chiller tilts that enough.
I've played that matchup in both tiers, and I feel like the cold version of it, my Thags list can handle really well, and the takedown version, takedown tier, basically is like, oh, I have to play Animag because you just like ruin my Thags list, and I learned that lesson a very hard way. So Troll's got some tools. It's definitely not an auto win, but it's a good match. So that's what, 4 rounds. 4-0?
Yeah, now Vale's 4-0. We don't know whether there's going to be 1 or 2 more rounds because essentially there's only 3 undefeated at this point. Me, Jaden, and then the Brandon, the team
player.
cap for one of the American WTC teams.
Brandon, no.
Yeah. So he's got Crucible Guard. And so now I'm going into Jaden. And so we talked, he had actually forgotten his megalith and we had kind of joked around. So he just walks over. He's like, we're playing Vale versus Iona, right? And I'm like, yep. No question here. That's what's going to happen. I win the roll on this one. But I still decide that I want to go second. I thought I could take a lot of table space from him, but I know he's going to be super shenanigansy with Lord of the Feast. And so I don't think I can run up far enough for it to really benefit me to go first. So I decided to go second. Try not to give him a great Lord of the Feast into my caster or like into any significant models. But I'm also worried about like where the Blood Weavers are going to come from. So I'm kind of like, I'm a little crammed up. This is one of the problems I have playing against that Iona list. But basically I move my stuff forward, feel like I don't give him any crazy charges, but he's like, you know what? He's like, I'm going to go for an assassination. Here's my plan. I'm just going to tell it to you what it is. And then I'm going to put it into the dice math and, we're going to see, because either if this is the last round, he's like, I would love to go home and see my son. And if it's not, like, I'm going to need a break either way. So he's like, we're going to go for it. I just don't think I have a full game into me. And he's like, he's talking about what he could do if he doesn't go for the assassinations. And he's not sure if that's going to be enough. And so basically the plan is that he's got to kill a few things that are blocking charge lanes, but he can do it with sprinting models like Iona and his Stalker. And so he has Iona kill a Tentacle and Blood Boon a Hunter's Mark into Vale. So that Vale's going to be Hunter Mark because she is pretty far forward. But then that'll allow 2 of the Ravagers to get charges on her, and he can charge something else with Lord of the Feast and then shoot a Warmonger to teleport over there and be able to catch my Seraph and 2 Warmongers and Vale in his Thresher. So he's, and he's got 1 shot from Brigid. So he's punching it in. He's like, this is like an 80+% assassination. We're going to go for it. And I've already thought about this and I'm like, he has forgotten about Dark Sentinel. And so he's dependent on these 2 attacks that he's probably not going to get happening at the end. So all I got to do is not get screwed by Lord of the Feast. He goes in with the bird. He doesn't roll particularly well with his bird, so he has to blow his Puppet Master to hit with the bird. Because he failed. He only needed like a 6, but he rolled like a 4. Then he rolled a 4 again. Then he Puppet Masters and hits. So he gets over to the Warmonger. He clocks the Seraph, kills the 2 Warmongers, boosts to hit on Vale, and then hits Vale pretty damn hard. So I've got to transfer it over to the Seraph, and so it does not leave the Seraph with very many boxes because the Seraph's been hit once by him and once from a transfer. So that's rough. This is one moment where I forgot something very key. Golab could have removed from play both of the Warmongers that were killed from the Thresher, so he would not have gotten a corpse back. But I forgot about it, and it is optional, so I didn't realize this until like the next day.
Nothing like thinking about removing your own models from play. Like, it's just not like a first.
The thing is, I'm actually pretty good at remembering it. It was just I was very focused on thinking about the Dark Sentinel plan, and like that was my focus. Like thinking about like, is Golab being able to land over here and not take a free strike from Lord of the Feast? Like this is all the stuff I'm thinking about. And I'm just like knowing that I'm like, I've got to screw up this assassination. And he's still like, Iona's camping like 6 behind a building. So like, I've still got to kill her after this.
So what you're saying is you forgot about a Golab bonus again. Okay.
Yes, yeah. But it's a weird one because usually I remember that, but I'm pretty focused on like the Dark Sentinel plan. So he clocks her and he's buying attacks on her. And she had 3 transfers. So what I end up doing is then I transfer 1 to Golab and he rolls and basically perfectly takes out my mind on Golab. Awesome. And then gets 1 attack that doesn't roll great, and so it's just 5 damage. So I take that one, and then the other one I decide to transfer to the Seraph, even though the Seraph doesn't have a ton of boxes left, and basically let the Seraph die as opposed to risking taking out another system on Golab, and then let the damage overflow, and it leaves Veil on like 4. Because I'm thinking at this point he's only got 2 attacks left, and Golab's going to stop that shit. So then what happens is he charges in the first Ravager. I'm like, all right, pass the clock to me. You're triggering Dark Sentinel. So Golab's going to land here. We agree that I'm blocking line of sight for this other Ravager to get to Veil. He's like, yep. I'm like, okay. So now I've got to take, I have a boosted 7, but I lose my dice. So I needed, but I think Gorag was close enough. So I'm like, I'm at 7 versus like defense 13. But then you're down to like 4. So I needed something not terribly high. But it was like a 4 on 2 dice. So I get it. I hit. We're like, okay, so I'm POW 14, your armor 18, dice -4, 5 boxes. I'll ignore tough. I need a 9 on 3 dice. And I rolled an 8. So the Ravager lives 1 box and kills Veil. We talked about it afterwards because we were talking about some of the positioning that could have changed this, that he could have charged to a position that would have forced Golab to like be further forward so that Golab would almost certainly die for doing it. Because there's a position that the Ravager could have gotten to that for me to block line of sight to the other one, Golab would have to be like pretty far forward, which would almost certainly get him killed. But then also we talked about like he had forgotten about countercharge, and I put Golab just a little too far over. So I would have triggered countercharge with the position that I chose, but I was only like a millimeter or 2 away from not triggering it. So that's something else to keep in charge because the Ravager solo has countercharge, but that guy's always been so far back in all of my games, being very defensive, but he had ran him up for like the bonus to hit. So anyway, I ended up losing this one, but it came down to if I had remembered Golab, then it still screws up his assassination either way, because then after the boost, he has no he would have no he wouldn't have an additional attack. And so that would mean that Veil's on like 9 boxes or something, and the Seraph's alive before the Dark Sentinel.
Also, if you RFP those Warmongers, don't you heal off it as well?
The Golab wasn't damaged at that point.
Oh, okay.
So theoretically, I could have in that situation, had I remembered, I could have transferred to Golab instead of the Seraph for the 1 damage, the 1 hit that I took. But I don't know the exact order of how because I think the damage would happen. I would have to transfer the damage before the other models are technically destroyed, because all of them are happening simultaneously. So I think I can transfer the damage to Golab, then remove the 2 Warmongers and heal 2d3, because Golab doesn't actually get hit and suffer grievous wounds, so he can still heal, because it's just a transferred damage. So yeah, that again, had I remembered that part, that probably would have been the better play, because then we're like pretty operational across the board. And I think that really screws things up.
Well, and then if you kill the other Ravager, you heal again.
Yes, you know, so if I eat that other Ravager, then, you know, get more points. But man, so super interesting. And I loved talking with Jaden afterwards, because we were like dissecting like all sorts of different positioning decisions and that sort of thing that could have changed this. And so I'm not always like opposed to baiting people into assassinations on Veil, because Dark Sentinel can screw that up. So that's definitely not the worst thing. But when all things came down, Brandon won. And so even when Jaden and I talked about this later and realized how I could have messed up the assassination, I was honestly kind of glad that I ended up losing on that assassination, because I'm pretty sure my 2 list would have been rolled seriously by his Crucible Guard list. I did not have a list that would take guns, and both my Fags list and my Veil list would have gotten wrecked by Brandon's Crucible Guard list. But Jaden was able to...
Brandon is looking for some revenge against BMR after LVO as well, so he would have loved that opportunity.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty sure I would have gotten wrecked not having Callus for that. So Jaden was able to pull out the win. It was final table, so nobody else played a game. So the only people who played the 6th round were Brandon and Jaden, and that was a super, super close game that came down to the wire. But Jaden was able to pull it out. And again, like I said, I didn't. If Brandon had lost in his pair down to Sean, then obviously I'd probably been a little bit more sad, because at that point I would have just won the event, and over such a very, very tiny mistake. I mean, Jaden was fairly in a good defensible position, so killing Iona still would have been very difficult, because she had a lot of transfers, but Golab could have potentially walked over the house. So who knows at this point? Like, that's all conjecture, but knowing that Jaden won, I was very proud of him. This is not a game that I feel bad about at all. It's a very teeny tiny thing to forget, and when you have a lot of complicated models like Veil and Golab, you're just not going to always remember everything every game. But still, great experience, and I was feeling really great. Like, coming out of that, I'm like, I just went 4-1 with Veil. I now feel like I have another list that I can main list, and so I can potentially bring this with Callus and have 2 very powerful lists that I'm very confident in, or switch between the 2. So I'm not always playing Callus at local events and that sort of thing. So coming out of this, I decided I didn't go out for food with a bunch of the guys. I stayed and like watched the game and talked with people, and just like, you know, watch the matchup. Wanted to learn more about Crucible Guard. But yeah, fantastic event. Ran really smoothly, ran really on time. I was very, very happy I came down for it.
Great job, man. I'm really proud of you. You showed well, you know, BMR getting out there and doing it right. And, you know, I like to bring up things that you just said and reiterate it. So you mentioned you didn't go out to dinner with all the guys, that you stayed and watched the final game. And I think that's so clutch. Like, even if you don't feel like playing all the rounds, or you end up dropping, watch some games. Like, Watch Machine is really important to not only learn what players do in certain situations and how model interactions unfold, but you can sit there and think, like, what would I do in this situation, and then see if those players make those same decisions as you, and then, you know, consider what options they were considering and how it affected their decisions, and even talk to them about it after the game. You know, hey, I remember there was this one point where you were going to make this charge, and I was like, man, if he had just backed up 6 inches, that's what I would have done. And maybe they saw it, maybe they had a different plan in mind. And so being able to watch finals tables games is rare. It's an opportunity that is not afforded to a lot of people. Even in our media age, we just don't record as many event final tables as we used to. So great job, and I think you did the right thing by watching that last match too.
Yeah, it was a great time. And I mean, the guys who went out to dinner were like the locals, so I was going to have like a drive back with 2 of them. So we're definitely going to have more time to chat. And but I sat there and I was drinking. I bought my I bought the troll opponent from round 4. I bought him a beer. I bought a beer for Sean, who drove down, and he's the guy who got the pair down into Brandon. And, you know, when you have like a whole store, like a whole like tournament of people rooting for you to like end the tournament early. But, you know, obviously Brandon, you know, wanted to keep it going, and it It was a good game. But yeah, they ran a great show. Mox is opening up a new store in Portland, so maybe the PDX Open will be held in Mox, Portland next year. But yeah, it was good. Got more games, like played against a lot of casters. I mean, obviously I've played against Iona before, and I've played against Mordekar before, but I had not played against Madrak 1, Madrak 2, or Scar 3 yet in Mark 3. So again, getting more casters under my belt felt great, and I'm excited to play more Vale. Like she very quickly, I'm like, in my opinion, she might be in the top 3 casters in Legion. She's really, really good.
I think that she has a lot of new life in Primal Terrors. I think that anybody that underestimates her ability in Primal Terrors, she'll put her on the table a few times before they talk, because even just sitting here at my home table and playing a few games against myself, I was like, Charles, you're going to make me play Vale 1. I said I wasn't going to deviate from the plan. I said I wasn't going to do it. But then I'm like, oh, God, like pulling things into Insight with tentacles, so good. Like being able to have like a big wall of Warmongers block line of sight, so good. Being able to have Gorag bonus on top of Chiller, so good.
Yeah, just being able to move your whole army on feat turn, just basically no questions asked. They're all in her bubble. She's like in the middle of the table. You do have to be more careful. She's spending a little bit more fury. So 3 transfers is often where I think she stays alive, and 2, like if there's any attacks that get on her, 2 is danger zone. So you can't upkeep Chiller or you can't upkeep Frostfield and Leash and cast Insight if they have any potential attacks to get in on her, because that's where it gets real scary. But
yeah, you need to be ending the game on that turn.
Well, or it needs to be one of those where like she's going to cast Insight and do those things, but like there's a scenario, like there's a house or a forest, or like you are going to like murder everything that's possibly got any reasonable attacks on her outside of like, someone flings like 1 or 2 spells at her. Like that's the sort of point you need to be at when you start getting her below 3 fury. Like there needs to be almost nothing that can get to her.
I like that you mentioned the feat moves too. Like Warmongers can like Vengeance in 3, charge, and then back up, and then you have your Chosen who are like charging across the entire zone, murdering things, and then backing up with reposition, and then backing up with a feat all the way across the damn zone again. It's so good.
Well, then also you got to keep in mind, like after the Chosen back up, the tentacles like move forward. And so like the Chosen are out of the way, but then there's these tentacles that are all jamming shit up. And then you got to like piecemeal the birds, like put some of them into shitty positions and just like start irritating the hell out of people. And
even just being able to like move a bunch of stuff back together to block line of sight, you're like, all right, I explode outward and kill all your shit, and then I'll come back and now I have a like meat shield blocking line of sight to all of my Hellmouths and to Vale and to Go Lab, and so you can't see anything until you chew through all this beef. Go.
Yeah. It's a really good list, and I'm trying it a couple of different ways because obviously I did very much realize, and we talked about this in the last episode, because I only have 2 beasts in the list, the moment she's transferring 1 or 2 hits, like the amount of boxes you have on the table in beasts goes real fast, because if she gets hit, it's almost always dice plus something. Like she's only armor 14. So when she gets hit, it hurts to transfer to something else. So I really, really wanted to squeeze in another beast. And so I'm playing around with a few ways to like tweak the list and keep that the same, but stick a Harrier in there just so I have something to transfer to, and something else to like go stick in a weird zone when I need a beast to control a particular zone, but the other beasts need to like go get work done. But it's hard because at 27 War Beast points, it's a little rough. But I'm also playing around with a version that like drops the birds and the Warmongers for 2 Nerfs. So it's just like all work. It's like double Chosen, double Hellmouth, double Nerf, Seraph, Go Lab, shit dies. Right?
It's a lot of value.
But yeah, it's really good. I'm happy to play her. I'm experimenting a bit with your girl, Animagnum, Animazing, whatever. I'm glad you shared our little messenger chat, because I was considering as well. I'm like, this is pretty funny.
Legion Bros.
Funny. But I'm not sure if Animag's going to end up singing like the way that she sings for you. I still like her, and I think she's good into the meta, but It dropped her on the table again. Not quite my jam, but whew. Man, I love playing Vale again. It feels good. You were like, you got to bring Vale back. This would be such a you thing to do. And yeah, she's back, baby. Like next day, I had messages from people like, hey, I'm playing your Vale list. This is awesome. Like Donnie over on the East Coast, one of the Molly Whoppers, he's already gotten in like 7 or 8 games with my Vale list. And he's like, I never played Vale before. This is so much fun.
It's amazing. And I like that there's a few things going on right now. And you and I, we started Blight Makes Right with a mission. We said we were going to come back. We were going to offer positivity. We were going to offer a fresh perspective. And we were going to cram some new lists down people's throats. Like, we had secretly discussed this, and we're like, all right, like, let's not do this if we don't offer anything new. And let's not, like, commit to this if we weren't going to push boundaries. And Charles, every week we were out there going, hey, has anybody tried this? Like, when was the last time you just, like, put this together? And you know what? There will be some naysayers. There are going to be people who are being like, oh, yeah, this is just this plus this. Well, there are only so many options within the faction. And at any given time, any considerable option, when limited, is going to seem similar to something else you've seen. But even a small, minute change can make a huge difference. I mean, I made a small, minute change to my fags list recently, and it completely dynamically changed the list in a huge way for me. And it was a matter of like 14 points. So when you see players like us who get in a lot of reps, who spend a lot of time thinking about it and spend a lot of time tanking about it with other players, discussing matchups, discussing the plays, discussing all the way out to turn 7 how things would play, when we say there's some minute changes here, but there's a different list, think about it, because I mean, even today, you know, we're on Super Secret Legion Dodo Tech, right? And I'm throwing out some lists, and I point out some of the synergy, and even players are like, oh, I didn't realize that that gave veteran leader, and that also benefited from Prowl because of Fog of War. Like, there's a lot to talk about that subtle changes will make in the list, and so don't write it off. Don't take it for granted. Dig deeper. Read more. Try to figure out what's going on in the list.
Yeah, sometimes those little stacked bonuses really end up making a difference. But it's been, I'm really happy that we've been able to come back and like start presenting some new things. And I know I'm very focused on Primal Terrors, but I'm sorry, like I'm not going to apologize for this, guys. I have wanted to play ogres for so long. I got into the game because I thought the Ogren looked really cool. So for me, like getting to play some cool dragons, but like also getting to play like my Urukai warriors, I'm like, yes. I'm loving it. So I have no problem exploring PT right now. But I'm really happy that we're able to bring some lists that other people haven't been playing as much, and bringing up some casters. Like I remember people saying they thought Vale 1 was bottom 5. And that is not the case. I will tell you 100%. Like there's Jaden afterwards was like, dude, I might just start playing your Vale 1 list. Like he's, you know, he was like, this looks super fun. And I've been getting a lot of feedback from other Legion players going like, dude, I like your Callus list and I like your Vale list. Like it's new. It's like Mark III Legion, but it feels like the way that things played for Legion in Mark II. The things that I enjoy doing, I feel like your lists do those things, but it's like it's the old school tech, but in like new. It was like if Wu-Tang Clan comes out and they're like, I've got a fresh new modern, like, you know, turn of the century sort of beat, but it's still with Wu-Tang Clan lyrics, right? Like,
yeah, they did that on a Logic album, and it's dope. You all should go check it out. But I totally hear what you're saying, and I'm right there with you. You know, I bag all of my models foamed as lists, and so they're easy to change out. And up until your Portland Open, I was only carrying around 3 lists with me. I was carrying around my Thags 1 Children of the Dragon list, and my Animag PT list. And then after we went to LVO and getting to see you play it, I committed to carrying around the Callus portion of the Callus list because I think yours is better than my Callus list. And then now I'm like, okay.
Well, all you got to do is just stick Vale in the bag, like, right? Like, there's all the crossover. Like, just Vale goes into a slot, right?
Exactly. I was just like, and so I have to order Vale. Because I don't own her yet. And then I have to find one small base place on my phone, but that is a lot harder than it would seem because I have like 20 Shamblers and 10 Incubi and 10 Hex Hunters, all taking up like all of my small base slots. And so I'm like, well, maybe if I change my whole dynamic of all of my lists, I can fit Vale in here just in this one spot. Yeah, let's do it now. And totally, I'm gonna carry her in the palm of my hand.
I placed a discount games order, and it was funny. I was actually going to order enough different foam. I was like, wait a minute, what all comes in the new like a brand new pluck foam bag? What's all the different foams that come in that standard? And it was basically like everything that I needed except for like a 3-inch, and it had like an extra 2. But it was basically like, I'm going to order all the foam that's in the bag. This is probably a reasonable time for me to just get another bag. So I ordered another bag. I ordered an Ogren Bokur, and I ordered like a 3-inch pluck foam. But one of my plans was with the new foam was your Thags list because my Incubi would be in my bag anyway because I need them for Callus. But everything else, like the Hex Hunters and the Shamblers and all of the beasts and everything else fits in the painting bag. Right, that you can actually like zip attach to the bottom of your battle foam bag. I'm like, and honestly, I could probably fit the Incubi in there too if I wanted to, but basically it fits in there. So I'm just like, when I want to bring your Thags 1 list, it's all just positioned in my painting bag where I can just like, well, I need this for champs, just bring that bag too.
Excellent. It's funny how we've like both started decking each other's lists. That just shows that, like, because you would not play my list if they were either trash or way too Bloodrathian. Like, and you know what I mean. Like, that's an old school, like, Mark II term. But
the little too Thunderdunk for me, like.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel the same way. Like, sometimes your list can be a little too reposition-y, janky, like, just all over. You love playing the Veil, too, of just, like, how many things can I move in one turn?
I love extremely finesse lists.
Yeah, you really do. And, like, I like some of those, too. I've played the Denny 2s. I've played Veil 2 for a long time. But that's kind of, like, my alternate, like, that's my extra list. And so it's nice that we both...
My opponents have said, they're like, dude, I know you don't know what all the models and stuff do, but your positioning is on point. And that's the kind of player that I'm. A very positioning-heavy player, very finesse-heavy. But you can't play some of these really finesse like lists. Like it's a style. And I'm not saying finesse like better than other lists. There's other styles. There's jamming lists. There's assassination lists. But the kind of list that I tend to play it's like a lot of mental work, and you have to like not make really subtle mistakes or you just lose because you'll just put something too far forward. And we talked about it like my game with Purrier. Like I'm a finesse player and I dropped a Go Lab. Should have been like 3 millimeters to the right, and that changes that game.
It's funny that you mentioned like being a finesse player and play styles, because like I could go off on a tangent about this all day. I actually had an argument with Will Pagani over it. I think it was at Adepticon once, because like I hate the term play style. It's just people shouldn't refer to that. They should play all play styles, and I understand that mentality. But there's also like playing to your preference and playing to like the way you see things going, and like everybody has a different taste for things. And so like even my Thags 1 list, if we both played the same exact list point for point, we would both play it in very different ways. And I think that's one of the interesting dynamics about where Legion's at right now, is even if somebody were to pick up your Veil list and go out there and play it, they can still play it in their own way and play it in a very, like, say if I were to play your Veil list, I may not play it super finesse. I would probably play it something along the lines of, like, heavy attrition and sledgehammery, where it's like, all right, I'm going to commit to just nuking this zone and then running away from you. Like, I would have my own style for playing, and it wouldn't be on this at all. So
I do admit when I assassinated Scar 3 on bottom of 2, and I got to like put that into our chat, I was kind of like, Manuel, aren't you so proud of me? I totally blood wrathed this motherfucker.
It's true. It's true. I had one of those moments last night. I sent you the picture of Gareth surrounded by the Shamblers, and you're like, he died to Shamblers?
Wait.
I didn't even get the stationary off, man. That was just 2 rounds of CM. One thing, so interesting facts about Gareth here, is that like I felt like if I could outflank him and get the Bokur close enough and I could start dropping zombies into the trench he was in, I could really neuter him because he has to aim to get all of his bonuses. And when he's in melee, he cannot aim. So it's like if I could just get one thing in melee, suddenly his game starts to fall apart. And I'm like, okay, so my Bokur is close enough and Shamblers, and then I just start feeding Shamblers, and then over time they start CMAing him, and the whole game plan falls backwards. And a 10-point unit made all the difference in that matchup.
Dude, yeah, I think the Shamblers make that list, and so that's why it is most likely my off list for champions. I'm going to try to get some games with it, but it's not a priority going into Seattle Open because I'm pretty sure I'm going to play Callus 1 and Vale 1, but I need to get a little bit more time in with Animag and see if Animag wants to be a part of the pairing. But right now I'm like, Callus 1, Vale 1, baby. It's like back in the day. These are classics for me. I feel good.
Right on. Well, I think we've both settled in really hard into our list right now, and we both have like also lock and load in the crosshairs this summer,
sure.
And so now it's like exactly.
But
we got to get the reps in so we can go in there and represent BMR for everybody.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to lock and load. And before lock and load, I've got to figure out what all stuff I'm doing, like Seattle Open. Plus, there's more events. But I will just have to say, I'm going to say something right now. And I know that I talk about like bringing like a Mark II style to how I'm playing now, which is totally true. Like I liked how I played in Mark II, but applying it to the models that I'm using now. I mean, a lot of my games were won and lost on Angelius and Ravagors. Let's just be straight up. And then like Scythians, those were like the three workhorse pieces for me. And then like Rakes, right? Like, but I'm not really playing any of those right now. And so even though my play style is similar to what I was doing back then, I'm doing very different models. Like I'm loving Nerfs, I'm loving Go Labs. Seraphs come back in a big way for me, and I kind of stopped playing Seraphs, and I'm loving all the Ogren and stuff. It's still a different game plan, but what I want to say is I have never been more excited to be playing Legion and playing War Machine and Hordes. And that is a question. I see, old classic players that, remember the good old days of Mark II and hating life and do not feel like the game is where it was at then, or like having as much fun with it. I don't know exactly. And there was definitely some points where I would read like the forums or Discord or things when I was considering coming back. I mean, like, I'm just not excited, but I can firmly say now I am more excited to be a Legion player than I ever have before.
I agree. I am 100% on that boat with you, Charles. It's funny because like Infernals, I was super and am still super hype about Infernals, but I sat through and I finally got a chance to go through the dev chats and I got to listen to your podcast with Line of Sight, plug.
Super fun. Love those dudes.
Love those guys. I got to kind of catch up on some of the reading over the week. It's been a really busy week for me. And in the end of it all, I messaged you and I only had one conclusion. And you know what that conclusion was, Charles?
Blight makes right.
That's right. Blight makes right. Because I just was like, I feel better than ever to be a Legion player right now. It feels so right. Like we are in the precipice of a new era in the meta, and I feel like we are poised to take it over. Like it's coming, and we are going to be on top. Blight makes right, motherfucker.
So I just realized something. So this is going to be kind of like my BMR moment to end this podcast. If I ever start building a list that I'm falling in love with Bethane again, and I know like she's an argument for the bottom of the barrel. I'm not saying that I have a list for her now, but your t-shirt got me thinking about this. I will, if I bring Bethane back, I'm going to wear a Boba Fett t-shirt when I do it because no disintegrations.
Okay.
All
okay,
right.
I don't know that qualifies as Blight makes right moment, but you know what? I'll tell you, Charles. The day that she ever comes back to be relevant, and I'm like, oh shit, Bethane is good again. That's a Blight makes right moment.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, you're crisscrossing like some of my favorite things: Legion, Blight makes right, and Boba Fett and Star Wars, right? Like just. But also. Thank you to all of the listeners. We have over 100 people subscribing to the YouTube channel. So we appreciate the support. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate all of you, not just guys. I know I'm really bad about saying guys when I mean everyone. I'm happy that all of you nerds are supporting us, and I'm really excited to do more shows, and just happy that you guys have been supporting us breaking into this new video medium that's a little bit different for us. But
and, you know, if you watch us on YouTube or you watch us live, you get to hear and see Charles make the hand motions that go along with.
I know. I talk with my hands all the time. Like I actually I think a lot of time I'm like holding them down during the podcast because I very much talk with my hands. If you're on the phone with me, dude, I'm like like.
Oh yeah, me too. That's why I have to have a Bluetooth. It's actually really weird because like I have to watch myself because I've got like the tiny little window where it shows you, but I don't really pay attention to myself. I'm looking at you during the podcast and the camera, and my hands, like I'll be scratching my knee or something, and then I look at the camera and I'm like, oh, that does not look like I'm scratching my knee. I should be more careful about what I'm doing down below the camera. It's like my hand's just like, and what are you doing, buddy? What are you doing down there? So, yeah.
Hand on the back of the seat, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's a new media for us. We're still getting used to it. There's still some bugs to work out, but we'll get better at it. I mean, we did 300 something episodes of Remove from Play and all of the other podcasts on top of that, and we got better at it over the years. So I can expect that Blight Makes Right Mark III will get better and better every podcast.
For sure. We got more coming. And shout out to TJ for chatting with us in the chat live. But anyway, that's it for us today. This is Blight Makes Right. Blight's out.